Hey, it's Soleil, and this is episode 432 of the Orange Pill Investor. And it's almost 4th of July. So let's do the damn thing. I'm sneaking in right before the market closes. I think. Hopefully, it didn't close early. And let's dispense with the formalities and just make it happen. I don't think I have much expiring today, so probably won't do much. But this will give a good and better estimate for how little time and effort this strategy actually takes. It's not day trading. I only do this every day for the clicks, for the views. Obviously, I would be paying attention, but some people say, "Oh, I don't have time to do this myself." It might be true that you don't have time necessarily to oh fuck, the market is closed. Did it close early? That's hilarious. Okay, so I ain't going to do shit, but maybe we'll just chat. I probably wasn't going to do anything anyway. All week I've basically been doing nothing but looking at my positions because I rolled them out so far. What's up, Howard? What's up, Emperor? It's funny because I was like, I'm going to the gym first today. I got time. I'll sneak in there later. Then I was like, I gotta feed my dog. And then I was like, I gotta cook a steak. And then I'm like, okay, fine, fuck it. Let me just jump online. Uh, so not only are they closed tomorrow, but they closed early. Was it half day or an hour early? How much did I miss it by? Oh shit, that's hilarious. You know, I guess this is a humble brag, but I did I went on online on a Saturday one time because I didn't realize it was the weekend, and I'm like trying to trade and I'm like not getting any fills, and I'm like, oh fuck. Let me adjust the bid ask, just to smash the ask. I'm like, I'm not getting any fills, even I'm like going all the way to the bid or all the way to the ask. And then I was like, shit. I forgot what day of the week it is because I don't work anymore, and I don't have clocking in 5 days a week to keep me honest with the fucking days of the week. So that's fun. But yeah, I mean, nothing was really expiring anyway, except maybe in the 5K account. I love that strategy is moving up because the covered call challenge is just dominating even more. Every time the price goes up, even though all of my covered calls are getting wrecked, I assume the same is happening to Misty and IMST. So we're all dealing with the same situation. But my December 1080s are finally like slightly in profit. So that's good news. Yeah, and the 5K account, I think I had rolled everything out to next week anyway. So there. I wasn't going to do anything anyway. But that is kind of fucking funny. Let's see, is there a notice? Usually Robinhood will be like, market closes early today. Nothing. Rat bastards. All right, so we'll just talk then. Fuck, 1 p.m., so I missed it by 3 hours. That's even funnier. That is even funnier. I thought, all right, well, at least I get to have a 3-day weekend. But the fact that I missed an entire half a day makes it even fucking funnier. To give yourself first fuck the money, you have fuck you money. Yeah, it's funny too because I was talking with a guy and he's like, he was trying to get a feel for how much covered call premium you can make, and like he's trying to plan his future, like when he can bring the portfolio to his wife and be like, babe, I think we got enough. I'm calling it quits. And I think people would probably be surprised at how small of a portfolio I actually quit. How small of a portfolio I actually retired on. Uh, because especially like these dividend investors, these TradFi dividend investors, they just have these what I feel like are ridiculous numbers. They're like their version of engagement farming is like, could you retire on 5 million? And I'm like, 5 fucking million. I'm like, when I um kind of battle tested my worst case scenario, I was like if if my account dropped in the bear market to like I don't know, to like 250,000, I think I could still probably get by. Is my Let me see something. Oh yeah, it still works. Oh, okay, so my little window disappears when I put the chats up. I'm like, if my portfolio dropped to 250,000 in the bear market, I'd probably have to like I would say I would just be eating ramen or something, but there's no meat in ramen, so I'd have to eat like hot dogs or something, hot dogs with no bun and just ground beef. But even like 1% of 250,000 is 2,500, and I think it would be pretty routine to get that every week. So, where's the calculator? Times 52 weeks. Yeah, 130 grand. I mean, that's basically what I was making with my W-2 job working in IT. So, like, worst case scenario, if we had a huge drawdown, I think I could still feed myself on a total portfolio of $250,000. I wouldn't be sleeping well at night necessarily, because to watch that kind of a drawdown, it would be like, okay, this is just about as much as I can stand. And if we draw down 10 or 20% more, it's going to get real fucking ugly. I'd probably have to start moonlighting or something, or unretire the old lady, send her back to work. But yeah, I wouldn't retire on $250,000 at the top of the bull market, because then if we have a 75% drawdown, I'm looking at what, like $60,000 nest egg. But yeah, even with the implied vol on strategy right now, if I was just to completely give up my upside and I had to literally just sell at the market covered calls every week just to survive and buy groceries, I mean, hell, on 40,000 bucks, 100 shares, that's like 900 a week. So 3 times that would be 2,700 a week. So $120,000 portfolio with 300 shares of strategy would still generate 2,700 bucks a week. Well, this is 8 days, so we'll cut this down to 8. We'll call it 2,400 a week. But that's no upside. But I mean, if you got to eat, you got to eat. Emperor said that retirement life is real. Yeah, I've been waking up later and later. It didn't happen to me right away, but I even got my dog sleeping later. Like his internal clock, he used to kind of like wake up. He wasn't he was never obnoxious. We kind of um our dogs would generally sleep, maybe let us sleep in a little bit, but around 7:30 they'd start getting a little restless. But now if it's 7:30, if I get up, go to the bathroom, go back to bed, he'll just look at me and just roll right back, roll right back over. Of course, he's 15 years old, so he he's getting a little bit less motivated. He still loves his food, so don't get me wrong, he's still food motivated, but he's happy to sleep in till 8:30, no problem. So it's getting tougher for me to get up and ready for the market to open. Usually by the time the market opens, I'm walking him. And one of the things I probably need to do is get on a schedule. That way people can know I'm gonna, I'm gonna be live at market open every day, or noon every day, or whatever, 2 hours before the market closes. Just kind of make it consistent. But that's probably assuming I'm trying to build the account up and, I don't know, feed the algorithm, I suppose. Howard says, Josh tweeted about trying to buy Strife in size and not getting filled and telling everyone it's a tight market. Don't sell STRF. Then someone told him the market was closed. You're in good company. So even the great Josh, so maybe he misjudged his time travel and he was 4 hours late to the market. He was supposed to get in at 11:30. What's up, Vince? Lateness Nithu showed up to work late. Yeah. You know what's funny? In boot camp, we were company 918, and our company commander's motto was company 918 will not be late. So we would leave early for every fucking thing that we had to do, which was a little bit of a pain in the ass because in Great Lakes, Illinois, in the dead of winter, there's 2 feet of snow on the ground at all times, and it's just really freaking cold. And if you get to the chow hall early, you just stand there waiting for the doors to open. Or if you get there even after they open, but you're the 4th company in line, and now you have to wait for 300 people to go through the line before you can even get into the building. Yeah, that's where the saying "standing nut to butt" comes from, because you are more than happy to get friendly with your company, your shipmates, just to stay warm. The snow was actually so bad all winter that our company never learned to march. Like, we knew the commands, you know what I mean? Like, oh, forward march, okay, everybody takes a step. But the streets were so slippery that we just couldn't safely practice. So any military movie that you've ever seen where everybody's walking in formation and everybody's left foot's in unison and everybody's right arm is swinging in unison, and as the company walks by, it's just like row after row of straight line. Yeah, that wasn't us. We were at Addie's March for basically the entire boot camp. So that was fun. What's up, Forrester? Strife has regulatory and board decision-making risk per the prospectus risk disclosure. Regulatory and board decision-making risk. Yeah. Is that only just for the whether they have to delay the dividend, right? Because STRD is the only one that they can completely forego. Like Strife, it's cumulative, so it just builds up. But I guess that would be, they'd still have to disclose that as a risk. Well, if anybody's got any suggestions, throw it in the chat of something that we can talk about. Otherwise, maybe we'll just ballpark this Jim Chanos trade. because he's saying I've been watching his little Twitter war with some of the True North guys, and I threw my zinger in there, but he didn't bite on what I had to say. He mentioned about how he, I don't know, he made a bunch of money. I guess he made a bunch of money on Enron or one of those things, and now he's shorting Strategy and going long Bitcoin. And I said something along the lines of, yeah, I talked to a guy in the sauna who made, 10x his money with XRP, but you can learn the wrong lesson accidentally being right. And I'm not saying Jimbo was accidentally right with his call to short whatever the hell that was he was shorting back in the day. But I think he still learned the wrong lesson, that he can apply all of those principles to everything because Bitcoin didn't exist. Bitcoin wasn't, Enron wasn't backed by Bitcoin. And even if you set up a Ponzi with Bitcoin, like I kind of almost kind of feel like it would still be hard to fail. Like, I don't know, maybe FTX did that, but they were creating their own little shit coin and leveraging that, and that kind of all fell down around itself. But so if Jim sells $100 worth of Strategy and buys at, let's just say we're at 2x MNAV, and then he buys $100 worth of Bitcoin, and then he's assuming at some point Strategy will be at 1x MNAV or close to it. That's what he needs to happen. But in that time frame, Strategy will probably pick up 50% more Bitcoin. What are they at, like 600,000 or something close to it? So if they pick up another 300,000, now Strategy's baseline price that it kind of can't fall below has increased. But let's just think, okay, so he sells $100 worth of Strategy, buys $100 worth of Bitcoin. Strategy's trading at 2x MNAV. And let's just say Strategy's at 400, Bitcoin is at 100,000, just for easy numbers. So he's saying that like Strategy will hold at 400, but Bitcoin would have to double in order for his $100 to now be worth 200, and now he can buy back his quarter of a share of Strategy and have $100 left over. But like I was saying, if Strategy has picked up 50% more Bitcoin, now they're going to be trading at 600 just from the value of their Bitcoin alone. So if he doubles his money on his Bitcoin, he can get a third. I guess he'd still kind of be okay because he could get $200 for his Bitcoin, and if Strategy's at 600, then he can buy a third of a share of Bitcoin, or excuse me, a third of a share of Strategy, pay back the quarter of a share that he bought for $100, and keep the 30.33 minus 0.25. So he'd make like 0.08. But that's assuming that he's even correct. So like, not only that, he's had to let's talk to Grok. Let's do some Grok foo. Where's my... What is the carry cost to borrow MSTR for a short. Sell. All right, so if his profit was 0.08 shares of MicroStrategy at 600 a share, he'd make 48 bucks off his $100 investment. It's not bad if he can make it happen. Let's see. So you only have to pay 0.5%. That's not bad. So you can borrow pretty cheap. But the point is, if he has to wait until 2027 for it to be 1x MNAV, he's still paying interest the whole time. So he has to, that's going to cut into his fees as well. When the poor bastard could just buy the strategy, assuming that they're both going to go up, he could just sell the 450 strikes 45 days out, get paid $1,500, buy $1,500 worth of Bitcoin, and now, like, he's, you know, he's shorting but above strategy's price, but profiting off of strategy's vol, which is double Bitcoin's vol. So this just seems like a better version of his trade that doesn't rely on two assets that are positively correlated, you know, decoupling and going in the opposite direction. And I know there's precedent for strategy trading at 1x MNAV at the last, you know, during the last bear market, but they didn't have the preferred shares back then. They were basically just on a roller coaster, or they were just on the back of a raging bull, and basically were kind of like slaves to Bitcoin's price and the market sentiment attached to it. But yeah, I mean, selling covered calls on strategy and buying Bitcoin with the premiums sounds a hell of a lot easier to pull off than waiting for months, maybe years, for the Bitcoin bear market to rear its ugly head. And I mean, how painful is it going to be if that 2x MNAV expands to even just 3? That short is going to look fucking brutal. And he did say, you know, if even if strategy does start doing stock buybacks at 1x MNAV, he will have already exited his position. So he won't, you know, even in the scenario that I put together, I gave him the benefit of the doubt of exiting at 1x MNAV. But if he's saying he'll have exited before that, then that profit that he's already squeezed out would be even less. So it doesn't, it just seems like the only way that he can be right and win this trade is just so razor thin and has to fall exactly the right way. And he might have to just, you know, if strategy rallies, is he going to just dollar cost average into the short and just short even harder? Like, the higher the MNAV goes, is he just going to keep shorting more and more and more? His financial anus might be kind of worn out after another 6 months of strategy. I mean, I don't really try to predict the price, but if this bull market ends with strategy under 1,000, at least, hitting 1,000, that would be kind of disappointing after staring at all the moon math spreadsheets for the past year. But that's kind of like my base case. I mean, if we get one pump from Bitcoin to 150, and then we get another one to, I don't know, 250, I mean, that puts strategy at like 1,500 to 2,000 a share easily. So is he just gonna keep shorting and shorting and shorting, like dollar cost averaging into that short position to where, okay, if the MNAV finally collapses from 4 down to 2, he can exit for a profit and be like, see, I told you so. That just seems like way too much fucking work, Jim. Forster said, it reads as can forego. Okay. Adult men talk about WWE in my gym sauna. Yeah, usually when I if somebody's in there and I go in, I'll let like 10 seconds of uncomfortable silence settle, and then I'll say, are we talking about Bitcoin or football? And then usually I'll get a little bit of a chuckle out of that. And 90% of the time it's football. But every once in a while, somebody will be like, oh, yeah, I'll talk about Bitcoin. What do you know about Bitcoin? And then, after about 5 minutes of talking, I'll realize that they're heavily invested into fucking Ripple or something. And then I have to have that shitcoin conversation, which always makes it feel a little hotter than it already is. Taylor BTC, if you had $200 of VTI, would you sell it and incur a $15,000 capital tax bill for strategy shares, or load up MSTR on margin against it at a 10% rate? What's VTI? Some kind of index, right? Oh, yeah. What's in this thing? Tech. Okay, all the tech stuff. Can you actually sell covered calls on this? Not really. Less like 1/3% in a week. There's not a lot of vol here, huh? Yeah, you can get, not much here. Would you sell it and incur a $15,000 capital tax bill for strategy shares, or load up MSTR on margin against it at a 10% rate? Man, that's tough. That is a tough question. 15, let's see. So that's at, that's long-term cap gains. Actually, that's even less. Are you not in the United States? How could you only pay 15? Oh, because your cost basis. So it must be worth like, your cost basis must be like 100,000. So you'll pay like 20% off the profits. Man, that's tough. I guess, I mean, Vanguard is up 14% and it pays a small dividend, I assume. Does it say what the dividend on this thing is? I obviously I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't give financial advice, but I took profits in basically every single other position that I own. And I had like a 10% like token Tesla position, and I even sold that when Tesla ran up recently. So I'm so bullish on strategy that I can't bring myself to be long anything else for any reason before strategy hits 1,000 a share. Like until we get a nice 2x from where we are now, 4x from the bottom, which was like 250 once we found support. Like once we 4x from that 250, then I would consider rebalancing into some other things like Tesla or maybe an STRD. So I can really only I can really only say what I'm doing. But even though I'm an anarchist, I don't obviously I hate paying taxes, but I don't trade in such a way, like I don't trade around taxes to a certain extent. Obviously I'm selling covered calls. I'm just slamming my head into the wall of short-term capital gains taxes over and over and over again. Some of these leaps positions, I will try to push out and pay long-term cap gains if I can hold them for a year. I'll do that. But I am not averse to just taking tax hits. 200 grand would get you what, 500 shares of strategy? Going out to the expected move of 460, selling covered calls twice on 500 shares would pay the tax bill. And even if you got called away at 460, that's another 15% profit. But that doesn't mean I would necessarily sell covered calls right away, right? I mean, I do it all the time, but if I was a new covered call seller, I might wait for strategy to hit 750 before I started doing something like that. But of course, I'd have to pay taxes on the profits that I'm selling these covered calls. But yeah, collecting the profits on 10 covered calls would pay the tax bill. So without coming right out and saying it, I think that's what I'd be looking at. We're trying to get him to short 3350 Minute Planet, and Simon offered to borrow and Jim backed out. Dude, I saw that tweet when Simon said, "You want some borrow?" That was just like straight up moment that will live in infamy, I think. Andre, have you ever considered using a small percent of Bitcoin to get a loan from LEDN and buy more Bitcoin or strategy? What's the minimum requirement? I think I said people might be surprised by the smallish size of my portfolio that I was willing to retire on. People might be surprised at the smallishness size of my stack of Bitcoin too, because in March of last year, I think March or April, I sold half my Bitcoin to buy strategy. So I was willing to just take the tax hit on that, and I haven't regretted it. I know Saylor likes to say you never sell your Bitcoin. Plenty of people say that, but I'm more of a circular economy, spend and replace Bitcoin. What's it called when you spend your Bitcoin? Method of, is it MO? Anyway, um, I hope I don't know if I'm going to live long enough to see it, but I think Bitcoin will become the unit of account at some point. And somebody's probably Medium Exchange. Thank you. I knew somebody was going to answer it for me in the chat. Thanks, Taylor. Yeah, Medium of Exchange. Even when I was talking to Bitcoin Mechanic, and he was kind of like mad about Pizza Day, right? Because Saylor posted that the picture of the frickin' pizzas, and he's like bought it with fiat, and like that's kind of like a distinction without a difference, because if you admit that you have fiat to begin with, you're already admitting that you're Bitcoin poor because you're not all in on Bitcoin. You like if you have $10 to spend on a pizza, that's $10 that should have already been Bitcoin, and then you should just spend the Bitcoin to buy the pizza. I think you can do that with Strike. I haven't done it yet. Just converted my entire checking account to Bitcoin convertibleness, but it is intriguing. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a little bit of a hypocrite there. I do keep, enough cash in my checking account to pay all my bills, but yeah, that was a moment when Saylor could have posted, "Hey, in honor of Bitcoin Pizza Day, I paid for these pizzas with my Lightning wallet," and then, gave a tip of the cap to whichever service he was using, right? Whether it was Strike or some other kind of hot wallet. And then be like, and don't worry, guys, it wasn't Strategy's Bitcoin that we spent. It was my personal Bitcoin or whatever. And I think I'm with Jeff Booth. He says that Bitcoin has to succeed as a medium of exchange or it will fail as a store of value. And I agree with that sentiment, because if everything just becomes paper Bitcoin, everything is layer 2, everything is fucking Tether, or even like we were kind of joking that people will probably pay each other with microstrats or Stratcoin or something, because you'll be able to actually wrap your Strategy shares into a payment system. And if you go out drinking and somebody's, you're like, okay, you buy the drinks and I'll instead of Venmoing you after the night out, you send them some fraction of microstrats or something. And that's all cool and all, but I think it's more important to have Bitcoin be circulated, right? When I'm old and gray, I should be spending my Bitcoin so the people who are turning 18 can go out, provide some value to the world, and earn some sats. That just kind of makes sense to me. So I checked with one of the Bitcoin loan people, and I didn't have enough Bitcoin to even get the loan. So my my remaining sats are enough to get me out of the country if I have to if I have to flee with the clothes on my back and set up shop somewhere in South America. But it wouldn't benefit me. But I'm pretty sure yeah, there's other people that do it for sure, and they'll use their Bitcoin loans as their dry powder, to invest in some other things. And I would absolutely do it. I think if I qualified. Forster, thoughts on PLTY? Same as MSTY, long surveillance states techno panopticon validates Bitcoin use case. Yeah. I used to trade PLTR just for a pure premium play. But once I got my full, it took me a full cycle to really get my laser eyes. And once I did that, I just refused to trade anything that wasn't a Bitcoin derivative. But I get your point. So you can get about 3% at the money for 1 week. That is not bad. So there's decent premiums to be had here. That's on par with strategy right now. Of course, strategy is as low as it will ever get. IV rank on PLTR is 23. So PLTY is going to be a covered call ETF, yield max, based on that. What kind of dividends are they returning? They got to be churning out some decent premium right now, so I would assume their dividends are decent. Average annual return, 128%. That's pretty legit. Yeah, I think they're pretty in cahoots with the US government, right? So I'm sure they'll print money. Wow, so you think he already closed it? Like he got cold feet, or you think he closed it for a profit, like when strategy went down to didn't we get that little quick dip? So maybe all the FUD that he was spreading was just enough for him to close. You think he closed here? I don't know how long he's had this trade on. You think he closed here or here? Let's see. Is Misty 6x the risk of Strife? It's 6x the ROI. Is that how risk-adjusted returns work? All right, I got to think about this. This is confusing me. Is MSTY 6 times the risk of Strife? It's getting 6 times the returns. I don't know. I'd have to spend some time with Grok on that one. Is selling CCS to October on Misty doable? Check out the chain. It says 5 cents. Raekwon said this. So I know some people do that. It's like double dipping on their Misty and selling covered calls on it. I wouldn't go out to October, first of all, because that's 3 months, 90 days. Like, yeah, 106 days to expiration. I would still be that like in the buy call zone there. Theta doesn't really ramp up until, I mean, 90 is when it starts to ramp up, 60 even more, but 45, according to Tasty Trades research, is when it really kicks in hard. So, I mean, selling the 25 strikes, getting an extra 1% off the top, and if the price goes up 25%, then they get called away. I don't know. That's just kind of annoying. Then you're dealing with them trying to snipe your MSTY shares right before the dividend pays out, right before the ex-dividend date. That's the one thing that you got to watch out, selling covered calls on anything that pays a dividend, because, oh, ex-dividend date is today. Super. So did MSTY shit the bed today, or is that going to be tomorrow? Yeah, dumped its price. Yeah. And this is why I'm not even afraid of trading against these covered call ETFs anymore. I used to see that ex-dividend date approaching, and I'd be like, shit, if they pay out a really big dividend, they're going to pass me. They're going to, their value is going to go up, and they might pull ahead of my my challenge account. But then I remembered every time they spit out a $2 dividend, the price hemorrhages $2. So you get the $2 a share paid out, but then the price of the stock just vomits out that dividend. So it's kind of like not 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but it's 1 step forward, 1 step back. They just end up right, or the portfolio that has this that has this dividend position just ends up where it started. So they don't really scare me much anymore. Let's see. Check out the chain. It says 5 cents. Where at? The $24 strike for a nickel? I mean, if you just have tons and tons of shares of this, I suppose you could scalp a little bit off of here, but I don't see the point. You could try to scalp an extra 1% over 45 days. And the price only has to go up 10% to get called away. I don't really like it. And that's just at 45 days. So going out to, yeah, the liquidity is probably going to suck ass here too. I mean, look, there's no volume. Okay, at the 25 strike, there's volume and open interest. So you could do it here, I suppose, but still, a 10-cent wide bid-ask spread, and you're only collecting 30 cents. Like, the bid-ask spread is 1/3 the size of the entire premium that you're getting paid. So you're scalping a little bit off of this, but the liquidity sucks. So I probably wouldn't bother. Taylor, approach perspective, wasn't even considering selling covered calls against it. And I know NFA, just my last remaining position, I haven't converted strategy. Yeah, I know what you mean. What's up, Ryan? Good morning from down on, okay, Australia. Wishing all a happy 4th of July for tomorrow. Appreciate that. Kaidazen, we are in a low IV environment, so I should be stacking leverage. In your opinion, 1080 December are the best method if we are thinking the run happened this year versus 400 to 500 strikes. So I like to say that there are no perfect strikes. They're all priced correctly. But the reason why I like the 1080s, and let's just go to December, is that I can get 8 delta for $700. So let's just remember that 8 delta for $700. And then what did you mention? The 400 to 500 strikes. So let's go closer to 500. Well, let's go to some multiple of 700. So I need 7 times 7 is 49, right? So for the price of 1 470 strike, I can get 7 of the 1080s and it was 8 delta, so 7 times 8 is 56. I can get 56 delta for $4,900, but for $4,900 at the 470 strike, I can only get 46 delta. So I can purchase more leverage at the 1080 than I can at the 470. But if you will remember back to the gamma curve chart that Grain shared, the gamma curve is maximized approximately 10 to 20% out of the money. So basically right at the 500 strikes that you mentioned. And gamma is going to give the maximal delta appreciation once strategy turns this 500 strike, or excuse me, the 48, 470, 500, whatever, once it turns this out of the money call into a 10 to 20% in the money call, gamma will have the maximum effect on delta over that range. So if you are a skilled enough trader that you, or if your plan is to say like, okay, I'm going to buy the, the 450, the 500 strikes, and I'm going to exit this position when strategy gets to 20% over that, which 20% over the 500 strike would be the 600 strike. So you're like, you know what? I'm going to pack my bags and I'm going to take my ball and go home. When strategy hits 600, then you will have captured the majority of the gamma curve. If you are not willing to take profits on that because you think strategy is going to 1,000, then you are in the unenviable position of rolling all or some of your profits into another position that's 10 to 20% out of the money. And then you have to kind of like get lucky, time the top, and stop rolling at some point before strategy hits resistance and then starts careening back down again, right? Because if we hit $1,000 of a share on strategy and that's the top, then it's going to correct back to 500 again, right? It went from like 1.25 to 500 in November, and then we got a correction down 50% down to 250. So like all of these things, it's not going to be exactly that way. Maybe we go to a 1100 and we only go down to 650, or maybe we go to 1050 but we go down to 475. Like some kind of up down will continue to happen, right? I don't do technical analysis, but support and resistance is a real thing, right? Stocks go up until no one's willing to pay anymore, and then they go down until the market finds a price that no one is willing to sell below. And then we trade sideways for a while, and then it decides whether to go up or down again. So just to recap, with the 1080, you can get more delta per dollar. With the slightly out of the money, you can expose yourself to the peak of the gamma curve. So each one of these has a benefit and each one of them has a con. And so you have to compare the pros and the cons, and you also have to compare your trade style. Like if I only had $5,000, are you going to roll your 500 strikes up to 600, and then if the price goes to 800 or 700, then you're going to roll them up to 800, and then if the price goes to 1,000, are you going to take profits? But what if it never goes to 1,000 and then you just lose it all? Or I don't know how much money you're talking about, but like let's say you bought 2 of the 470s for 10,000, if you double your money, would you sell one of them and book, make sure that you do no worse than a break even? Or, maybe if this goes 3x, you sell one of the positions and now you've booked a profit. And then even if you fuck up the trade and you roll up to 700 and then you roll up to 900 and then you get burned on it and you screwed up and you missed the top, and then that second call expires worthless, but you already booked like a little bit of a profit on one of your two options, and like you guaranteed yourself some profit and you let the rest ride. That that's a strategy that at least protects you from yourself and missing the top potentially. Or getting 7 1080s for $4,900 and then doing something similar, right? If the price goes up to 14 bucks, do you sell 4 of your 7 positions, book a profit, and even if the other 3 expire worthless, you're still up a little bit of money? Those are all different ways to manage the trade, but neither one of those decisions is saying that the 1080 is better than the 470 or that the 470 is better than the 1080. They both have pros, they both have cons. Thomas Sowell said there are no solutions, only trade-offs. And so the strike and expiration selection is more about giving yourself enough time to be right. And when I was buying the Junes and Julys in this zone, there was not enough time to be right there. I ended up having to roll those positions before they were ever profitable. They only ever lost money over the 6 months I held them. No, excuse me, probably 3 to 4 months that I held them. Emperor, I sold some Bitcoin to get a nice Metaplanet stack back in April and do not regret it. Yeah, and see, that's the thing. The whole point of Bitcoin is to become sovereign. It's to have permissionless money that you can store as capital, and then at some point in the future, the life force that you stored in that money you can use to make your life better. And if you're looking around and you're like, you know what, this Metaplanet is going to make my life better because I believe in what Dylan is doing, right? I think he understands Bitcoin, and I think he's implementing the strategy, and I want to support a Bitcoin treasury company, and I think I can get venture type returns on top of a venture type asset. Then like fucking go for it. The people that want to take their Bitcoin to their grave, or like I got kids, but I don't think my kids are going to have kids. So my situation might be a little bit unique. Like I'm not enriching my bloodline 1,000 years from now. I'm not thinking that far out. Um, so maybe I'm a little bit more selfish with my sats than people who are trying to make sure that their grandkids and great grandkids are set up for infinity. Because I don't even know those kids. They don't even exist yet. They might be badass kids. Maybe I don't want them to have my sats. Maybe they should go get a job or provide some value to their fellow man and earn their own fucking sats. Everyone gets the price. Everyone gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve, right? That includes your descendants. Let's see, Taylor. Man, don't get me started. Take a loan on my Bitcoin and then buy Strategy Devil on my shoulder. Yeah. Yeah, that's the type of loan that you have to be careful because it's encumbered. And if if it draws down below your margin, then you get liquidated. So that's kind of annoying. It's something that shouldn't be entered into lightly. Let's see. Dylan saved my Bitcoin stack from the FTX collapse back in 2021, so I believe in what him and Simon are going to do long term with Sailor. Wow. If you don't mind sharing, how did he do that? Was he sounding the alarm on FTX? Hey, what's up, Joey? Been sniped 3 times on Misty covered calls. Yeah, man. That's just it's selling covered calls on dividend stocks. It just gives you that one more thing that you have to fucking pay attention to, because if you've got the 25 strike and the price is 24.50, you're like, "Oh, I'm safe." But if they're going to pay out more than 50 cents, then people will exercise on you on X dividend date, snatch your shares. You get paid the 50 cents per share, but they might get $1, $2 a share. And it's just one more thing to pain in the ass to pay attention to. Well, it would be fitting if my audio went out when I'm not even supposed to be trading, or shouldn't be trading, or can't trade. Would like to trade but can't trade. So I trade with my son. I got him doing it. I had him apply for a loan, but they denied him. So I got approved, and I loaned him the money that they loaned me, and I'm just making him pay me back. And he's like, how's this going to work? I have to sell the covered calls and then I pay you the money. And I was like, yeah, you should be able to make enough in 1.5 to 2 weeks to pay the monthly payment. And then the other 2 weeks of covered calls is pure profit. So, but that was just a signature loan. Nothing was encumbered. I've also taken out loans against my paid off car, took loans against my house. All of those, none of those things are tied to the Bitcoin price, like borrowing against your Bitcoin is. But I guess it doesn't matter. Like if I borrowed against, instead of selling half my Bitcoin stack, if I had borrowed against half my Bitcoin stack, I would just be running the risk of losing half my Bitcoin, but I sold my Bitcoin and lost half of it anyway. So, but yeah, I've done well. I could buy way more Bitcoin than I could when I was just holding it in cold storage. Find the post. Okay, cool. All right, so I think we have decided that Jim's short trade doesn't make sense unless he's already covered. Like maybe he spread enough FUD that he's already covered somewhere, somehow. But that would be kind of wild. I know pretty sure he blocked Adrian. They were going at it a little bit. And even Lynn Alden started dragging him as well. That was kind of fun. I was tempted to take a little bit of profits today if I was actually online early enough to trade, because I was like, maybe there's a little bit of low liquidity before the markets close tomorrow. That can go either way, right? Before a holiday weekend, sometimes the price will crash just because of low liquidity. But maybe people were already on vacation. Half the traders were already on vacation today, and there just wasn't as much trade volume, and people were kind of bullish on. It's basically a foregone conclusion that Strategy will announce earnings that qualifies them for the S&P 500. All we needed to hit was like 96K Bitcoin, and we were at like 109 or something, 110. Wait, was that? No, sorry, on the 30th. The 30th. Oh, we were at 107. Yeah, so absolutely blow it away. I think there's like $5 billion worth of losses that needs to wipe out 4 quarters, and they're going to more than double it. So it's all up to the committee now. And so maybe the market is just sniffing this out. We pumped on the 30th, and then we tried to somebody was taking profits, but we bounced pretty hard off 370, and it came right back. Now it remains to be seen if we'll trade sideways from here or gap up at earnings or whatever. But I rolled my calls out so far, I probably won't be making, I might not make a single trade in the next month until it's time to take my covered calls off. Because I rolled these damn things out to 52 days, 56 days. So there's a ton of extrinsic value left in these options. Actually, the amount of extrinsic value, it should be going down, but it's actually been going up because Strategy's been pumping. So I've been getting wrecked on all of my covered calls, which is fine by me. Worst case scenario, I'll have to like close this poor man's covered call before earnings to be able to afford to close all of my short positions. But by August 7th, there will only be 8 days left on these anyway, so there won't be a lot of extrinsic value. It's possible that I could end up rolling this once more between now and then, but I doubt it. The only way that I would end up rolling these before then would, like, Strategy would have to crash below 370 in order for the value of these to drop so far that it would make sense to roll them. And if that happens too close to August 7th, I'd probably just hold on to them anyway and wait till the last minute. All right, well, that was a whole lot of talking and no trading, but it's kind of hard to trade when the market is closed. So that was fun. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. Kind of funny. I think, I don't know, usually around 500 people or so tune into this thing. So y'all must not be at work either. And like 700 people tuned in to watch me not trade. So that was kind of cool. I appreciate you guys. Happy 4th of July.